It is awful to get robbed. But you know what's worse? Getting robbed by the company that you pay to protect you from getting robbed. There's a story behind that, and I'll get to it in just a second. Hi, folks. Tony DeWitt again with another video on the law. Remember, I don't dispense legal advice here, and this is what we're talking about today. Before I met the woman who became my wife, I had never been to anyone's house who had an alarm system. And for the most part, I thought alarm systems were kind of bogus. It was an excuse to pay somebody money to do nothing because unless the alarm went off, they didn't even do anything. In fact, I felt like the best alarm system you could have in a house is a dog who could bark quite loud. I have actually a small dog, but when you're outside and she's barking, it sounds like a big dog. And big dogs tend to scare away even people who have means to hurt you. If they think the dog's there and they're going to get bitten, a lot of times they'll pick on the next guy. So that's sort of how I lived my life at that point. My wife convinced me that it would be worth the time and trouble to engage an alarm system when we bought our house in Florida. And that's because when we bought it initially with the idea that that's where we would be retiring. And so we weren't going to be there all the time. We would probably spend better than 50% of our time there, and we do. But because we would also be out of it for, weeks at a time, she thought it would be a really good idea to have an alarm system. And she had had an alarm system in the house that she owned in Alabama. Being the kind of person who listens to his wife, may not always agree, but what's it hurt to do what she wants to do? So we put in an alarm system. And we went with a very well-known company. I'm not going to mention the name here because it's not necessary to get the legal issue developed for you. But we have had off and on problems with it. One of the problems was that the darned alarm panel was, like trying to do calculus in your head, trying to get it to do what you wanted it to do at the time you wanted to do it. So I went to test it one time and I thought, boy, that was awful. The test failed. I didn't do anything. We were getting ready to leave to go back to Missouri at that time. And as I'm walking out carrying a big box of stuff to go put it in the car, I am greeted by a sheriff with a shotgun whose barrel was about that big, it looked like. And he said, "Halt." You can better believe that I halted. And my wife just dropped what she was carrying because she was coming out right behind me. And she said, "Oh, no, it's a mistake. We live here. I don't know what the problem is, but we live here." And we got it all sorted out. But basically, instead of sending a test, I had sent an emergency action message to the alarm company, and they dispatched the sheriff's department, which was really the only time that since we've been there that the sheriff's department got there with any kind of alacrity. Most of the time, it's like, "Oh, it's those DeWitt nuts. Yeah, we'll give them 30 minutes. Maybe y'all will have to do is draw chalk outlines around them." I kid because they're really pretty good folks. They're good sheriffs. They do a good job, but they have a huge area to cover and they don't have enough people. And that's not that's not the deputy's fault. Again, to make a long story short, we put this alarm system in. And we had to sign a contract, and they came and they installed the equipment and they tested the equipment. And we would set it and kind of forget it every time. And for the most part, it seemed to work pretty well. But every year, they kept going up and up and up on the cost of the monitoring. And like I said, it's not like they have somebody sitting there, with their finger ready to touch the button on the console to call 911 for you. Really, all they're doing is sitting there waiting for somebody's alarm to ring. And for the most part, that happens fairly rarely, I would think. I decided that we really needed to look at a different system. And although this is not an endorsement, and I am not being paid by Simply Safe to say this, Simply Safe, even though they had for a long time the dumbest commercials in the business, it actually does work. And you don't need a master's degree in electrical engineering to install it. All you really need to be able to do is to understand how to use those little contact strips. I forget what they call them. Yeah, contact is what they call them. Contact strips that 3M makes because that's how they mount their alarm devices. And it's fairly easy to set up. It's got good troubleshooting. And the nice thing about it, when you have more than one place where you visit and where you are from time to time, you can have both of them on your phone. You just can switch between the two by tapping a couple of places on your phone. So, again, it is a good system and it was much cheaper with a full access of monitoring privileges than the other system from the other company. And their headquarters is in Colorado. I don't know where Simply Safes is, but I felt like the response that we got when we tested the system and we tested things was the kind of response that you would want to get in a situation where you had some kind of a problem. So we installed it in the Alabama house first, and it worked really well. In fact, one day when we went out to walk the dogs and didn't realize we'd tripped the alarm, when we came home, there was a police officer sitting on our front door. And that was a little disconcerting, but again, at least he didn't have the gun pointed at me. And people do that with their alarm systems, and sometimes if you do it too often, they'll come and they'll charge you for it, but we didn't get charged for that. Again, to make this long story short, what happened was we decided that since it worked so well in the house in Alabama, we would swap out the system that we had in Florida because it was installed in 2009 and it was 20th century technology and it amounted to something like having a couple of, you know, rocks in a tin can strewn across the door. When you got right down to it, it just wasn't up to par with what the other companies were offering. We disconnected that and thereupon, we went with Simply Safe, and we've had no problems, no issues whatsoever with it. In fact, I really like the system. It's a good system. Well, since we paid the other company on a yearly basis, and I installed this back in December, we decided we just keep both systems going until it was necessary to shut off this system. So we shut it off in actually middle of February. We shut it off, and yesterday I got around to call, or I should say Saturday, I got around to calling the alarm company. And the alarm company said, "Oh, I'm sorry, our business office is closed on the weekend. You'll have to call back on Monday." I said, "Why don't you just send them a note? Tell them I'm canceling the system." "No, well, we can't do that, but we'll set up a call for you." So my phone started ringing at 7:30 this morning. And at 8 o'clock, when I decided I really didn't want to listen to it ring any longer, I answered it. And the guy wanted to know what I wanted, and I said, "I want to cancel my system." "Oh, I'm sorry. But listen, you've been with us for so long. Let me tell you about the great things we can do for you. We can lower your monitoring bill." I'm like, that would have been really handy about, you know, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months ago when we were overpaying, according to you. But, you could have called us anytime and offered us that, but you didn't. So I told him, "Look, this isn't a negotiation. We're done with you. Just cancel the system." "Oh, well, I can't do that. I have to put you through to the account maintenance department." "Right. Okay. Put me through to the account maintenance department. And I just need to let you know that at 8 o'clock in the morning, we have a queue and it looks like your wait is going to be about 9 minutes." "Okay, fine." So I put the phone on my desk and let it on speaker and just continued working on what I was working. And 13 minutes later, the guy comes on and says, "What can I help you with?" And I said, "Well, I want to cancel my system." "Oh, again, let me tell you all these different things we can do to make your life better and reduce your costs. And we'll even put in new equipment." I'm like, "Time out. This is not a negotiation, fella. I'm telling you, I'm canceling your service." "Well, don't you want to hear all the things we can do?" I'm like, "You may have time to tell me all the things that you have to do, but I don't have time to listen to all the things that you want to tell me. So let's just cut to the chase. Cancel my service." So after about the fourth time of saying, "Cancel my service," I mean, I didn't know how to say it in any other language. The fellow said, "Okay, well, I'll cancel your service, but I have to put you through the billing." I'm like, "Why do you have to put me through the billing? You're canceling my service." It goes year to year, and I'm canceling it right now. I shouldn't have any other cancellation to play. Oh, well, I'll have to put you through because we're canceling it as of April 9th. I'm like, "No, you're not. You're canceling it as of today." "No, we're canceling it as of April 9th." "You can tell me that, but you're canceling it as of today. It's not even working at the house now, so I don't know what you're talking about." So they put me through the billing, and the guy says, "Well, we have a 30-day policy." "Okay, you have a 30-day policy. I don't have a 30-day policy. I'm telling you to cancel the service right now. I don't want to pay for another day of this service. Cancel the system. I'll have to do some research here and figure out exactly how much you owe." I'm like, "No, you won't. You won't have to do anything because I'm not going to owe anything. We pay year to year and we're canceling, but we have a 30-day notice policy." But I don't have a 30-day notice policy. I have a Tony says I'm done policy. And guess what? We're done. And he started to ramble on about why all the things, and he didn't want to send me to collections. And I'm like, click, because I'm not putting up with that. Generally speaking, nobody is going to prevail in court on an unwritten policy. If it had been incorporated into a contract, and we haven't signed a contract since 2009, and when we put ourselves on a 5-year contract, we did that verbally, and there was no disclosure about a 30-day waiting period. And so, it doesn't make any sense to me to pay for something that I'm not going to get. They're not going to provide me any service during that 30 days. I've even had the phone line pulled out because SimpliSafe doesn't need one, and that's the only reason we had a phone line down there. Is there anybody in the country anymore that has a landline phone that uses it regularly that's not 90 years old? I mean, everybody has cell phones now. Nobody needs these landline phones except if you have something like an alarm system. Here's what's probably going to happen. They're going to send me a bill, and I'm going to write them a nice letter back, and I'm going to tell them, you're billing me for something that I'm not receiving. I'm not receiving any value from this. I didn't agree to this. You can have all the policies you want. I have a policy that says when my alarm company bothers me, I get a Maserati, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get a Maserati. And I'm going to send that back to them, and we'll probably spar. They'll probably call a couple of times and try and harass me. But generally, when you tell them that you're an attorney and that you're just not putting up with this stuff, and you bill $875 an hour, so if they want to have any further communications, send me a purchase order and we'll work that out. Otherwise, we're not having these conversations over what could be no more than a $28 or $29 bill. I'm not going to go to court, and I know they're not going to go to court either. And if they put anything on my credit report, I know how to get it removed. A lot of what happens when you deal with companies that want to gouge you, because let's be clear, this whole idea about, well, I'm going to move you from the operator to the account billing people, for the account people, and then they're going to mill you over to the billing people who are going to say you're going to have to pay more money if you quit. So why don't I send you back to maintenance so that you can, have a better deal? That's all that is. That's exactly what they're trying to do, and it's unlawful and it's deceptive. It is outlawed in nearly every state to have a deceptive marketing practice, and that's what that is. I don't look for this to cause me a whole lot of trouble, and so since it was something that was on my mind today, and I thought you might find it a little bit humorous, as I did, I thought I'd share it with you. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Come back and see me tomorrow. Thanks for watching my video. If you have a request for me to cover a topic, please send me an email to the address above, and in the subject line put video request. If you have comments, drop them in the comments down below. If you found the content worthy, please consider subscribing. Since I started doing this work, I have always asked listeners to consider doing just one kind thing every day to make somebody else smile or make their life better in some way. Please consider doing that. It makes the world a better place. Now, YouTube has some suggestions for other videos of mine you may find interesting.